Scripture reading for today, let us turn to Judges chapter 16, verse 16 to 22. Judges chapter 16, verse 16 to 22 says, "With such nagging, she prodded him day after day until he was tired to death. So he told her everything. 'No razor has ever been used on my head,' he said, 'because I have been a Nazarite set apart to God since birth. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I will become as weak as any other man.' When Delilah saw that he had told her everything, she sent word to the rulers of the Philistines, 'Come back once more, he has told me everything.' So the rulers of the Philistines returned with the silver in their hands. Having put him to sleep on her lap, she called a man to shave off the secret of his hair, and so began to subdue him, and his strength left him. Then she called, 'Samson, the Philistines are upon you.' He awoke from his sleep and thought, 'I'll go out as before and shake myself free.' But he did not know that the Lord had left him. Then the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and took him down to Gaza. Binding him with bronze shackles, they set him to grinding in the prisons. But the hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaved." This is the word of God. Amen.
Hallelujah. Welcome to Diane Church and welcome to church, especially this week. I believe that God will be very happy and will bless you for being here today. Was it hard to be here today? No? What a blessing for all of us. Today is a special study because it's the last study in the book of Judges. Yay! We spent, including today, we spent 16 weeks studying the book of Judges, and we're not done. Honestly, we're not done. We're only on chapter 16, but we are studying about. This is the third week studying about Samson, and there's even more about Samson, but I think it's about time we put it to an end and move on to the next studies. But so today's study is conclusion about Samson at the same time as conclusion about the book of Judges. I don't know if you remember, but the first study that I shared about Judges in this series was on the Lord's Day, and that sermon is actually the conclusion. I shared with you the conclusion to the book of Judges first, which was a climax, which was very. Do you remember the study about Micah? How things about his spirituality and the times of the judges were so corrupt. But today is a conclusion to the judges in the book of Judges. Meaning, the last judge in the book of Judges is Samson. Although priest Eli and Samuel were also considered partly as judges. Shall I wait for the translation? Please excuse us, we're having technical difficulties. Set to go? Do I need to go back to the front? Well, I'll just continue on. So, in the book of Judges, the last judge in the book of Judges is Samson, and let us track back a little bit to the beginning. We cannot go through the entire book of Judges and all the judges that we have talked about, but in conclusion to all the judges, what can you remember in the book of Judges? The book of Judges is a history of the fall of mankind. All set? Testing. Does it work? Thank you. is a history of the fallenness of man's heart. The fallenness, and we oftentimes look at it saying, wow, how can they do that? But then this is telling us, the book of Judges is crying out to us, this is what you are. This is what you look like. This is like our mirror. What do? When God blesses us, we're thankful, but then it doesn't last very long. Our spirituality, when things are comfortable, we don't pray as much. Things get better. We tend to invest more time and money on our own things or the luxuries and comfortable things of this world, right? And so we drift away from God, and so God punishes or judges them by using other forces, other nations to inflict pain upon them. And so they cry out to God. And when they cry out to God, God sends His judge, His men, or God does a miraculous work to save them. And when God saves them, they are thankful, right? And they're happy, they're praising, they're saying all kinds of good things like God is good, God is so good. And then, how long does that last? So it's a vicious cycle of this ups and downs of spirituality. Now, in the midst of that, what God is teaching us by sending these judges is that God, whether we believe or not, whether we are faithful or not, whether we are good or not, God's will continues on or stops. God's will continues on regardless. If the strong, mighty ones cannot obey God, God uses the weak and poor ones. If the faithful ones give up their faithfulness, God uses the poor ones, God uses the unknown ones, God uses the disregarded ones, the rejected ones. So, looking at these judges like Ehud, remember Ehud? What was the particular characteristic of Ehud? Left-handed, meaning his right hand was crippled, right? What about Shamgar? The guy with a stick, a farmer with a stick. He was nothing, it's just a farmer. With a stick, he destroys enemies. How many? And then Deborah. What's wrong with Deborah? What's wrong with Deborah? You said it, right? She's a woman. That's what's wrong with her during that time, right? How can a woman be a general in the military, basically? But she was, right? What about Gideon? Coward. Right? But what about Samson? What's wrong with Samson? Samson is the guy that has been chosen from his birth, right? Has been blessed with special power and strength. It seems like there's nothing wrong with him. His parents are believers. He grew up in a believing family with the blessing of God. But then, what was wrong with him? His head is something wrong with his head. And he's always chasing after what kind of woman?
10,000.
Beautiful woman. Maybe true. Right? But beautiful, but what's wrong with those women? Either Gentile, prostitute, right? Philistines, right? And so God, can you imagine, God is trying to find some people to work with, and these are all that's left? What about today? What about you? What about me? Are we the best choice that God would have had? I don't think so. But even then, God's will continued on. Even sometimes, do you feel like you failed? Sometimes do you feel like I'm not good enough? I feel like that every day. Every day I think about ministry, I think about myself being a pastor. To really be honest, not good enough. Do you feel good enough in front of God, doing God's work? But how good our God is, that despite our weakness, despite our failures, He still uses us. And He receives glory. After the time of Judges comes the time of Samuel, Prophet Samuel, right? The priest Eli's time. And 1 Samuel chapter 3 verse 1 says, the word of God was rare in those days. Right? In comparison to the book of the times of the Judges, the time of the priest Eli, right before in the beginning of the king's time, right? Was that more corrupt or better spiritually? Which was better spiritually? That time of the Judges or time of the kings? In the beginning of the kings? During the time of priest Eli? Which was better? Or which was worse? Judges? Time of the Judges or time of priest Eli?
Time of the Judges.
What do you think? Time of the Judges, at least, think about Samson. He confessed, I'm a Nazarite. I'm a judge. At least he knew what he was, and there was a small portion of himself, a small percentage in his mind, that he needs to do God's work. Can you remember what Eli's two sons were doing? Hophni and Phinehas, right? They were abusing their position, right? So which times were more corrupt? It seems like the time of the Judges were pretty corrupt, very corrupt, but right after that, during the time of priest Eli, was horrible. It was not hitting the bottom, it was digging under the bottom. Right? However, 1 Samuel, the book of 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel, during that time, it seems like it was better because of one person. Who was that? Prophet Samuel was there. During the time of the Judges, there was not one strong spiritual leader. So in comparison, Samson was born as a Nazarite. Samuel was born like a Nazarite too. Right? We compared that last time. But Samson had all kinds of powers and strength. What did Samuel have? What did Samuel have? He was a little boy without anything, right? But the difference was Samuel's mother dedicated him and put him in this temple. Right? Little boy without any strength. One thing he had, he trusted in God. He loved the Word of God. Samson had everything, but one thing he lacked. He did not trust in the Lord. He trusted in his strength. What's better? What's better for you to have? Oftentimes we want that strength. We want that power. We want that wealth. We want the riches. We want what the world looks up to. But then the one that actually does God's work, like Gideon or Samuel, they're the ones that knew how to trust in God. So that's basically the conclusion of the entire message of the entire book of Judges. What do you need to overcome, gain victory? What do you need? What kind of people is this age, the world right now? What kind of people is this world looking for? What kind of people is God looking for? God is not looking for rich people. God is not looking for strong people. God is not looking for healthy people. God is looking for, it doesn't matter what you are, as long as you know how to trust in the Lord. So I pray that everyone here, every one of us, will be able to trust in the Lord. In all of our life, one thing, if we can learn one thing, trusting in the Lord, really believing in the Lord, and being able to say, I have nothing. That's what King David, throughout his ups and downs and glories and difficulties of his life, in the end he says, all that I have is from the Lord. I have nothing. Let us think about Samson. A few things about Samson. Samson's relationship with God. First point. Let us think about Samson's relationship with God. It represents my relationship with God, your relationship with God. Was Samson's fall, Samson's corruption, began when he lost and when the standards of his life in meeting up to God's requirements was broken. Fall of mankind is not keeping the standards that God has set. Remember Adam and Eve? There's one standard that God set. You can eat from any of the trees of the garden, but you cannot eat from this tree. That's the standard He set. As believers, as chosen people of God, God has a standard that He has set for you. Samson thought he was over and above that standard. He thought because he's chosen, he can do anything in his life and still get by. When that is broken, when that standard that God has set is broken, that is called the fall of mankind. And so today we read verses 16 through 22 about, this is a short passage about how Samson loses his power. Verses 15 and 16. Delilah keeps on nagging at him. Keeps on persisting for him to let her know. She says, if you really love me, you have to let me know where your strength comes from. Do you think Samson didn't know why she was asking that question? Do you think Samson didn't know about the risk of telling her the source of his strength? He knew, right? That's why he did not want to tell. But what does it say? Verse 16. It came about when she pressed him daily with her words and urged him that his soul was annoyed to death. His soul was to the point of death. What do you do? Can you put yourself in this situation? There's temptation of this world. You know if you give in, it's not good. But temptation is always temptation. You know what that means, right? It has a pull. It has a draw. It has an attraction. And so this temptation, you're fighting against it. And to a point, Samson came to a point where it annoyed him, meaning it bothered him to the point of death. What do you do? What are you supposed to do when you come to this point? When you come this far? This is at the verge of going right or left. What is Samson supposed to do right now? If she's bothering you so much, and it's to the point of death, what do you have to do? Men do not have the answer. Women, at least, come on. Give me an answer. Run away from her. Get away from her. No? I mean, she's bugging you to death. Don't run away from your hot spouses here because they're bugging you to the point of death. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this temptation, the serpent, Satan, bugging you and tempting you to the point where you're like, oh, then get up and go. Get away from that place and that time of temptation. But what does he do? Verse 17. So he told her all that was in his heart and said to her. And what did he say? A razor has never come on my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If I am shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I will become weak and be like any other man. What does he mean here? What did he just do? He gave up. Let me ask you one thing. Is it the hair that gave him strength? Is it the hair? What did he, by telling her about the hair? Because Samson was a Nazarite, what was he not supposed to do? Three main things. Do not shave his head. No wine. No dead, don't touch carcasses. What did he not do all three? He drank wine. He touched dead things. So if he cuts his hair, will he lose his power? He's been doing the things that he's not supposed to do. Just because he does the final third thing, I don't know. That's what happened. But we studied last time. Is it his muscles that gave him the strength? The Bible clearly tells us, we read last time, when the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, then he became strong. It's not the literal hair, it's the Spirit of the Lord. But when he gave up that hair, he's not only giving up his hair, in this spiritual battle, this force of Satan is pressing on to him to the point of death, and he snapped, he gave up. And he said, I give up my relationship with God. He gave it up. And the Bible clearly tells us that the Spirit of the Lord left him. Verse 20. She said, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. And he woke from his sleep and said, this is after she shaved his head, right? She cut the 7 strands of his hair. And I will go and go out as other times and shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had departed from him. This is about our faith. And in our faith, it's not the hair necessarily. Of course, it is when she cut his hair, he lost strength. But you cannot say this hair gives him strength. It's the Lord that gave him strength. But when he gave up, the Lord departed from him, then he did not have the strength. We need to understand that in our life, what gives us that strength? Is it your education background? Is it your bank account? Is it your know-hows in how to do business? Or how to go about doing things? Is it your ability to be able to teach well in church? Or do the right things at church? No. The question is, very bare, deep inside, spiritually, is the Lord still with you? And what requires the Lord? What helps you to keep the Lord from departing from you? What is it? The reason why David repented so hard is because he found out what caused him. What caused the Lord to depart from him. And right before he departed, he prayed, God, do not let your spirit go away from me. Are you still holding on to the Spirit of the Lord? And we have to remember, and I think if we are spiritually awake, we know what will cause the Lord to depart from me. He sees the root, the foundation, the very bottom of our hearts. And so the question we need to ask ourselves is, who am I? Did Samson know who he was? Who are you? Who am I? Not what the world tells me who I am, not my title, not what my head tells me. Samson says, I'm a Nazarite. But was he really a Nazarite? God allowed him to be born as a Nazarite, but did he live as a Nazarite? We say we're Christians. We say we're children of God. We say God is our Father, but are we? Are you? That's one thing we need to think about. How do we know? Where do I spend the time? Where do I spend most of my time? Doing what? Where do I spend most of my money? Where do I spend most of my heart? Where's my heart? Samson, in the head, knew I'm a Nazarite. But in his action, he wasn't a Nazarite. Only when he needed it. Only when he needed help, he was a Nazarite. But otherwise, he did what he wanted to do. And eventually, the body goes where the heart is, and that's what you are. And so Samson, although by label he said, I'm a Nazarite, I'm a judge that is supposed to protect Israel from the Philistines, but he was at the whorehouse. He was at the Philistines, Delilah's house, on her lap. What was he? He wasn't a judge, what he was doing. He wasn't a Nazarite. His confession was his lips. And so when he continued to do what his physical body, what his tempted body and his lust of the heart told him to do, he lost his identity. There are many Christians and many people who have lost their identities in this world, even Christians. They don't know. They by label they're Christians, but they don't know who they really are. Because their body and their heart, their minds are somewhere else all the time. Including pastors and ministers. What's their purpose? Those who have a mission, those who have a purpose, need to be spending time and spending energy in challenging themselves, in self-control, in giving their efforts and time in making their path towards that purpose. If we don't do that, if we don't give effort and try to swim against the current of this world, we will not keep our identity. We will not be able to hold on to our calling. We will lose our strength, lose our time, lose our opportunity. And we can try all our best. After we lose our strength, it will not happen. That's why soldiers go through basic training. The sports people going for the training for the Olympics. Shaolin monks. Do you know what kind of training is the hardest training in those? I can only think of three on the spot, but what kind of training is the hardest? In those trainings, if they are training properly, mental training, mind training is the hardest. Physical, you can get used to it. But it's the mind training. Who are you? The Olympics sports people, they have to believe, completely believe in themselves. I'm a gold medalist. I am the best in this. I have to be. That's why they train. That's why they go forward. Military, if they're training properly, they have to train. I am a soldier for this nation. I'm a servant of this nation. And even if I die, I protect this nation. I fight for this nation. That mental training is not easy. Let us turn to Titus chapter 1, verses 7 through 9. Titus chapter 1, 7 through 9. It says, "For the overseer must be above reproach as God's steward, not self-willed, not quick-tempered, not addicted to wine, not pugnacious, not fond of sordid gain, not hospitable, but hospitable, loving what is good, sensible, just, devout, self-controlled, holding fast the faithful word which is in accordance with the teaching, so that he will be able both to exhort in sound doctrine and to refute those who contradict." And this is one thing that our senior pastor, when he was training saints in his church, when he was training his pastors, that's one thing that makes, he said, our church different from others. We must not lose focus. And he said, we are stewards of God's word. You know what that means? Carriers and deliverers of the word of the end time. In a war, if a messenger does not fulfill his duty in delivering a very important message, the entire war can be defeated. You can be defeated from the entire war. That messenger, that message is more important than his life. He cannot stop to buy candy. He cannot stop to, enjoy himself with a nice meal until the message is delivered. His life is not his life. His time is not his time. But if we lose that, we lose our identity and we lose God. If we think we still have a choice, then we will get into dilemma. Samson thought he had choice because he had the strength. Samson thought he can do whatever he wanted to do. Samson thought what he wanted to do was a choice, but it wasn't. And so when God departed, the Lord departed from him, from that point on, his life was full of shame. The greatest shame, plucking the eye, gouging the eyes out, that is done only to the greatest rebels of the nation. It was the most shameful thing you can ever have done to you, even if you're a prisoner. And for them to make him dance and make fun out of himself, ridicule himself, with his eyes gouged out, is that a true man of God? And so I pray that in all of our lives, that we may not lose God in our hearts. Sometimes we say, oh, because I believe in Jesus, I'm missing out on all the fun. Because I put so much time in the work of God, my youth is gone, and before I know it, I'm too old to do anything. But remember, you might have lost that time, you might have lost that health, you might have lost that wealth, but you have gained God. Would you rather have it the other way around? Have everything, all the wealth and luxuries and glories of this world, but lose God? So, those of you, in the beginning I said, you are blessed to be here. Not because of what you're receiving today, but you're blessed to be here because you have gained God over the others. Amen. And so the second main point, the first point was Samson's relationship with God represents our relationship with God. Second main point, which is a shorter and last point, Samson's life is like a prophecy of Israel, of the nation of Israel, especially during the time of the kings. Samson from birth was chosen by God. Israel was a chosen nation. Samson was given a special privilege, special strength to show everyone that God is with him. Israel, throughout its history, when Israel was in times of need or in times of war, God gave them special strength and they gained miraculous victories. However, in their normal days, during the battle times, during the fighting times, God's Spirit came upon them and they gained victory through miraculous power. But during their normal days, even the Israelites were committing lust and adultery, spiritual adultery by worshiping idols. Samson, in normal days, was looking after beautiful girls. Adultery, indecent relationships. And that repeatedly happened. And to a point where they revealed all their secrets. We can remember Hezekiah, King Hezekiah, such a good king, but revealed all the secrets to the enemy, and he lost it. Israel revealed all the secrets, did not keep Sabbath, did not keep with God, but tried to follow the ways of the Gentiles. And in the end, got their eyes gouged out. The last king, Zedekiah, got his eyes gouged out. Was it Zedekiah? So Samson's life foreshadows what Israel's going to go through. It's a warning. If you do not cherish and protect the special privilege and relationship that God has granted you, you'll get your eyes gouged out. You lose everything. But even then, as the last part, there is hope. Chapter 16, verse 22, the last verse that we read today. Let us go back to Judges, chapter 16, verse 22. It says, "However, the hair of his head began to grow again after it was shaved off." Isn't this an obvious statement? After you shave your head, hopefully it'll grow back, right? It's a natural thing. But what is this message? There's hope again. The hair growing back is this is an obvious thing, right? But why did God put that sentence, that verse in there? There's a hope of strength coming back. Meaning, repentance and the Lord being with Samson once again. Same thing with Israel. Because of their sinful, repeated idolatry, their eyes were gouged out. They were taken as captives in captivity. But there comes a day when the hair will grow back. There comes a day when they will return to their land and glorify God once again. So here, we see again, once again, God's patience, God's mercy. If I were God in this situation, I would let Samson just die in shame like that. Why? He proved himself to be useless throughout his life. Why use him? But God promised him. God promised when he was being born, he will destroy the Philistines. Even though Samson forgot the purpose of why he's chosen, God remembered and allowed him to go through that. But is it a happy ending? You know how Samson's life ended, right? So in this big idol worshiping festival, all the office officials and all the big people, the counselors, the governors gathered, and they brought Samson as a finale kind of thing to make fun of him. And the judge of the great nation of Israel, look at him. Right? And he grabs hold of the two main pillars and destroys, and everybody dies. Is it a happy ending? He killed more than he killed in all of his life. Is that still a happy ending? It could have been such a wonderful ending if Samson did not lose his identity. God fulfills his will, but for Samson it's not a happy ending. Are we just going to be used, or are we going to participate in the Lord's glory? God has given us strength, given each one of us talent. You might think, I'm like Ehud, I'm left-handed. Or you might think, I'm like Deborah. We all have our weaknesses. We're like Gideon. But still, God has given us some kind of talent. If you think there's no talent that you have at all, your weakness is your greatest talent. According to the Judges. Like little kid Samuel, little boy David, little boy Daniel, little boy Joseph. They were weak. But one thing, they knew they were weak. And they knew they had to trust in God. How are we serving God today? If we are serving God through money, if we are serving God through the position or the powers that we have, how are we going to serve God when we don't have those? So today, let us ask ourselves, who am I? Who am I? How am I going to serve God? Of course, with what we have, with what is given to me by God. But if I don't have that, would I still serve God? If Samson did not have that strength, could he have served God? And that's how God tests Abraham. That's how God tests everybody. Would you still serve me if you did not have that? Would you still believe in me and serve me if you did not have Isaac? Would you still serve me? Would you still love me as much? So I pray that Zion Church will be like Samuel the prophet. That our church will be like Daniel and Joseph. Even though we don't have anything, even though it seems like God took everything away and stripped us bare naked, we still trust in Him. And even when God gives us special strength, special power, and special talent like Samson, let us not be like Samson, but let us use the talent and let us make sure that the Spirit of the Lord does not depart from us. That's one thing. That's one thing. We want our church to be filled with the Spirit of the Lord. We are designing and praying for our new sanctuary. One most important thing. There can be some parts that are not done or some parts that we don't like. But as long as every room is filled with the Spirit of the Lord, that's okay. Yeah? That's what Solomon's temple, Ezekiel's temple. Ezekiel's temple, one important thing is, it's the temple where the Spirit of the Lord came back to. So may our church, and may you and your home be filled with the Spirit of the Lord. Right? Let us pray.